The stars glimmered like ancient runes scattered across the velvet night. Amid the silence of deep space, the HSS Deliverance emerged from a fold in subspace, its obsidian hull reflecting distant suns like a slumbering leviathan. Alone, unescorted, and without a single fighter screen, the vessel looked less like a warship and more like an ark long forgotten by time. It hovered in the designated neutral zone, a vast, empty arena declared sacred by the Galactic Council for its demonstrations, trials, and occasional executions. Captain Alara Voss stood at the edge of the main observation deck, her gaze fixed on the glowing crescent of the Varnock flagship approaching from the far quadrant. She was lean, mid-30s, with dark eyes that rarely betrayed emotion, even when warships loomed like titans before her. Her uniform bore no rank insignia, only the black sigil of Earth, a minimalist outline of the planet, divided cleanly down the center. Duality. Strength and balance. Mercy and might. They're early, muttered Commander Idris Kale, her second-in-command, glancing at the incoming vessels on the tactical display. Guess they couldn't wait to gloat. Alara said nothing. She didn't need to. The tension in the room was as palpable as the ion buzz of the reactor core humming several decks below. Around them, her crew worked in disciplined silence. No clamor, no drills. They'd rehearsed this moment in simulation 1,000 times. And yet, the real weight of it, of being humanity's only line, of standing before the might of the Varnock Dominion with a single ship, was beginning to settle into their bones. Across the stars, the alien media had already labeled them the Hollow Ship. Rumors had spread through the council chambers that Earth's ship had no real weapons, that it was a decoy, a desperate bluff from a primitive world too stubborn to surrender. And perhaps that narrative was what the council wanted. Let the Varnock laugh. Let them underestimate. That was part of the plan. The comms flickered with a synthesized chime, the sound of an incoming transmission. Idris glanced at Alara, who gave a small nod. The screen bloomed with the image of High Warlord Karen of the Varnock, a towering reptilian humanoid draped in ceremonial armor, his golden scales catching the ambient light like molten metal. Humans, he hissed, the translator smoothing his growl into words. You arrive in a shell. A tomb. Is this the full measure of your desperation? Idris's jaw tightened, but Alara raised a hand to stay him. Warlord Karen, she said, her voice calm, deliberate. We come in accordance with the Council's directive for peaceful demonstration. You requested we bring our best. We have. The alien's nostrils flared in amusement. This relic of your crude industry? Our orbital scouts detected no armaments, no shielding of significance. Tell me, are you hoping we mistake pity for restraint? A beat passed. No, Alara said. We're hoping you mistake quiet for weakness. With a snarl of derision, the transmission cut out. Silence returned, broken only by the soft whir of the sensors and the murmur of the ship's AI whispering updates. The Varnock fleet had formed a crescent formation now, ceremonial, traditional, meant to symbolically enclose their prey. Dozens of gleaming ships, bristling with visible weaponry and shield signatures that lit up the Deliverance's displays like a constellation of blades. They're putting on a show, Idris muttered. Broadcasting on all diplomatic channels, making sure every species in the sector sees us kneel. Let them watch, Alara replied, walking toward the Central Command podium. She tapped her palm against the biometric console, unlocking a secondary panel deep beneath the surface layer. A hum stirred in the ship's heart, barely audible, but distinct. The bridge lights dimmed for an instant, then returned. Idris noticed the change, and gave her a sidelong look. You're activating it now? No. Just reminding it we're here. In the chamber beneath the command deck, sealed in quantum stasis, the Deliverance's true purpose pulsed once, like a heartbeat awakening. Not weapon. Not engine. Something else entirely. A message pinged through the comms. A council liaison, polished and neutral, delivered the final protocol. This will be a non-lethal exercise, the AI voice stated. Per the terms of the demonstration, the Varnock will simulate aggression. You may respond in kind, but under no circumstances are you to. Elara deactivated the channel before it finished. The words didn't matter. The council didn't matter. She turned to her crew. Maintain course. Defensive posture only. No engagement unless ordered. And if they actually fire on us? Idris asked, his voice low, the question heavier than it appeared. Elara's gaze lingered on the main screen, where the Varnock flagship loomed larger with each second. Then they will have taught the galaxy a lesson about misjudging humanity, for the last time. A ripple passed through the bridge. Not fear. Not quite anticipation either. Something closer to gravity, a collective realization that the moment they'd trained for, feared, and in some strange way longed for, had arrived. The stars outside shimmered, distorted slightly as the Deliverance's internal mass shifted ever so subtly, an effect only detectable by the most precise instruments, none of which the Varnock had ever bothered to aim at the primitive vessel. Elara breathed in deeply. Her fingers grazed the control console. The trap was set. The mouse had invited the lion. And the lion had come. To be continued. The silence on the Deliverance was broken only by the soft hum of the ship's reactor and the occasional whisper of communication through the bridge. Outside, the Varnock fleet loomed, an imposing wall of gleaming ships. They had formed a semicircle, an arrangement that made it clear. This was no simple demonstration. This was a message. A warning. A show of power. Warlord Karen's voice crackled through the comms, his sneer palpable even through the translator. Humanity has no place in the Galactic Council. You are a blip. A footnote in the annals of our history. We shall demonstrate your insignificance in the most public way. Elara stood, staring at the screen. She didn't flinch. She never flinched. But inside, a cold fire had begun to burn, a fire she had buried for years beneath her calm, diplomatic exterior. Her people, her crew, had worked too long, too hard, to let this mockery continue. Stand by, she ordered, her voice steady, though it carried a weight of finality. No engagement unless I give the word. Idris Kale, standing at her side, gave a tight nod. His dark features, typically hard to read, showed the slightest hint of tension. His eyes flicked over to the tactical readouts, the Varnock ships flashing in red as they adjusted their positions. They're closing in, he muttered, fingers already moving over the console. They're about to initiate their attack. Let them, Elara said. Let them believe this is their moment. The Varnock dreadnought, Dominion's wrath, the pride of their fleet, moved first. Its forward cannons powered up, brilliant beams of energy beginning to form within its hulking belly. Elara could feel the ship shudder as the power system coursed beneath her feet. They were preparing, waiting for the inevitable strike. Her finger hovered over the control for the ship's main defense system. She could engage it, deploy countermeasures, activate the cloaking field. But that was not the plan. On my mark, she said, her eyes never leaving the screen. Hold steady. The Varnock flagship fired. A bolt of energy screamed toward the Deliverance. It was a pure display of raw power, a blast that would have shattered any other ship in its path. It tore through space, a serpent of destruction, headed straight for Elara's ship. But the Deliverance didn't flinch. It didn't even move. Idris's breath caught. Captain. Wait for it, Elara interrupted, her voice calm but filled with purpose. Her eyes, sharp as ever, tracked the incoming energy wave. She knew it wasn't just a blast. It was a signal, a test. The Varnock had underestimated her crew. Underestimated humanity's resolve. The moment the energy beam neared, the Deliverance shimmered, the hull momentarily vibrating with a soft hum. Then, with a flash of light that seemed to bend time itself, the beam veered off course. It shattered into fragments of pure light, each particle twisting and dissipating into the void. A collective gasp echoed through the bridge. Not a single ship in the Varnock fleet had seen it coming. The Deliverance didn't dodge. It didn't rely on shields. It didn't need to. It simply bent the rules of physics around it, as though reality itself had been altered for a fleeting moment. The Dominion's wrath fired again, its second volley even larger than the first. Elara watched as the blast approached, her heart steady, her mind focused. This time, she raised her hand. Now. Idris activated the main weapon. The Deliverance's core hummed to life with a sound like the universe itself stretching. The ship's hidden power surged through the circuit. And then, with a force that couldn't be seen but could be felt, the single shot was unleashed. It was not a beam of light. It wasn't fire. It wasn't even a weapon in the conventional sense. It was a rupture, a distortion, a hole punched into the very fabric of reality. The Varnock flagship, Dominion's Wrath, didn't explode. It didn't burn. It didn't even have time to understand what had happened. In an instant, the ship was gone, erased from space, from time. One moment it was there. The next, it was nothing. And then the same fate befell the other ships. Each Varnock vessel, one by one, vanished as if they'd never existed, consumed by the sheer power of the Deliverance's weapon. There was no warning, no moment of realization. There was only the vast emptiness of space, stretching on in stunned silence. "Report," Elara ordered, her voice a low murmur. Idris was still staring at the empty space where the fleet had been, his eyes wide, disbelief still clawing at his features. "They're gone. Every last one. Captain, what did we just—" "History," Elara interrupted, her voice now firm with the weight of what had just transpired. "We've just made history. And not in the way they expected." The crew was silent, a stillness that hung thick in the air. The ship's sensors were alive with data, scanning the area where the Varnock fleet had once stood. It was like watching a masterful painting, then erasing it entirely with a single stroke. The ship's systems had only just begun to process the event. "Elara," Idris began again, but his words faltered. We just? We didn't destroy them, Idris. We erased them." The realization hit the bridge like a wave crashing into a rock. It was a strike unlike any other. It wasn't destruction. It was absolute negation. The Varnock hadn't just been defeated. They had been wiped from existence, their ships never to be seen again. Elara exhaled, her eyes now narrowing with renewed focus. They mocked humanity's strength. Now they understand what happens when you underestimate us. The silence on the bridge was thick with the weight of what they had done. There was no joy, no cheer. Only the sobering knowledge that what had just occurred could never be undone. Not for them. Not for anyone. The Deliverance had fired once, and the galaxy would never be the same. To be continued. The aftermath settled over the crew like a long, cold shadow. No alarms rang. No voices rose. The Deliverance drifted through the silence of space, untouched yet fundamentally changed. In the vastness outside, where the Varnock fleet once held court with terrifying elegance, there was only emptiness. 1,000 eyes across the galaxy had witnessed the impossible, had watched an entire armada vanish in a blink. Elara remained at the command podium, unmoving. Around her, the crew carried out their protocols, but the air had shifted. It wasn't tension. It wasn't even awe. It was something deeper. Reverence, perhaps, fear. They all knew they had crossed a threshold, one not measured in light years but in consequence. Idris Kale stood beside her, arms crossed, his face unreadable. A man of discipline, he had endured the horrors of Earth's early wars in space. Pirate raids, diplomatic failures, proxy skirmishes, but nothing like this. His voice, when he finally spoke, was almost too soft to hear. "We didn't just win," he said. "We declared ourselves gods." "No," Elara replied, still watching the emptiness beyond. "Gods crave worship. We just wanted to be left alone." The bridge's lights dimmed briefly as the core cycled down from its peak output. Engineers murmured over consoles, rerouting auxiliary systems, performing checks. There had been no damage, no recoil, no burn-off, no system compromise. The weapon had worked exactly as designed. Or worse, perhaps, it had worked better than anyone ever imagined. The ship's AI, Nyx, spoke quietly, her voice elegant and devoid of emotion. No Varnock transmissions detected. Council broadcasts remain active. 87 systems are currently streaming our encounter. 42 have issued immediate diplomatic queries. 6 have initiated internal threat assessments. They're afraid, Idris muttered. They should be, Nyx responded. Elara turned, finally facing the crew. What we did was necessary. Let no one on this vessel think otherwise. Her voice carried through the room with the weight of command, but it lacked bravado. There was no celebration here. Only the solemn echo of action taken. We came to demonstrate our capability, she continued. They forced our hand. They tested a ship they didn't understand. They judged us based on a history written by others. And they were wrong. A young officer, Lieutenant Rain, looked up from her terminal, eyes wide. Captain, with respect. The weapon, it doesn't just destroy. It deletes. We didn't leave debris. There's no energy trace. It's like they were never here. They were, Elara said. And now they're not. Their legacy ends at the moment they chose arrogance over caution. Another silence followed. But this one felt different. Heavy, yes, but galvanized. The crew understood. They didn't need to cheer. They didn't need vindication. Their captain had guided them to victory through restraint and precision. Their presence in this moment was proof enough. Nyx, Elara said, connect me to the council. The holographic projector activated with a shimmer of blue light, forming a circular display of seated figures, avatars of the Galactic Council's representative. Hailing from dozens of civilizations, their forms varied wildly. Gaseous beings, crystalline constructs, multi-limbed creatures draped in light. All watched her now. Elara didn't wait for permission to speak. You summoned us here to prove our worth, she began. You handed us a trial wrapped in condescension. The Varnock were never here for diplomacy. They wanted dominance. You watched as they opened fire. Murmurs broke out across the projection. A reptilian delegate from the SH Tari Collective raised a clawed hand. Captain Voss, your ship utilized a forbidden energy class. That action may have violated Council interstellar accords. So did theirs, Elara cut in. And unlike them, we didn't ask for war. We brought a single vessel to demonstrate our strength, and they met us with an armada. You let them. More silence. Then came a voice, calm, ancient. The rail's speaker, an elder being of pure light and memory. What is the nature of the weapon you used? Elara didn't answer immediately. She looked at the bridge crew. Then back at the council. It doesn't matter, she said. What matters is that Earth won't be threatened again. You all wanted to see what humanity could do. Now you know. We don't seek conquest. But we will not be conquered. One by one, the council avatars blinked out, leaving only a blank projection field behind. The conversation was over. Judgment, whatever form it would take, would come later. Idris approached again, slower this time. They're going to debate this for cycles. Question everything. Possibly sanction us. Let them, Elara said. The galaxy needed a new narrative. We've just given them one. A chime interrupted their exchange. Nyx spoke again, voice low. Unidentified ship emerging from fold space. Bearing non-hostile signature. Not Varnock. Elara's brow tightened. On screen. A ship appeared, unlike any they had seen before. Its structure was fluid, silver and blue, pulsating with strange energy. Not hostile, but not familiar. It hovered far beyond the Deliverance, observing in perfect stillness. No known registry, Nyx said. Transmitting a direct message. Single phrase. Elara narrowed her eyes as the translation resolved on the display. We have seen what you've become. The message ended. The ship remained. Idris leaned in. Who are they? Elara stared at the vessel, mind calculating a dozen possibilities. Someone who was watching and waiting. The screen flickered. and then the strange ship vanished, leaving behind a single, silent ripple in the void. To be continued.